Well, the team went to Seamill the week before the match in Lisbon, and I think this is where it really must have hit them, just what it was all about. I think it was basically a relaxation, really, just to get the team away from all the pressures that had been building up on them.
They are through to the final of the European Cup.
I was balloted out of a flight that was leaving, and I got notice of this about 36 hours before the game. I tried frantically everywhere to get a seat in another flight, without success. And at 10 o'clock the night before the match, I drove down to Glasgow Airport, a small overnight bag packed, and I pestered the girls at the desk to find me a spare seat in an aircraft. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was successful. The courtesy of the crew of this particular aircraft. So they rushed me to the steps of the aircraft, up the steps, onto the plane, and sat me down in the seat. And the emotion just about overwhelmed me, because I sat next to my boyhood hero, Charles Patrick Tully. And the parish priest of St John's was in the window seat, so I knew I was going to be okay.
There was an aura about everybody in the airport, in the planes, everywhere they went, supremely confident. To such a degree that when we're walking around the Lisbon streets, you know, the day before the match and the day of the match, the Italian fans were just open-mouthed, flabbergasted. I couldn't believe this. We were strutting around as if it's all over, we've got the cup.
The atmosphere was something indescribable. I'd been at many big matches, I thought, prior to that. But the whole place was abuzz. It was a glorious day, holiday of obligation.
I remember Steen being quoted as saying that the churches in Lisbon were full of Celtic supporters, and he was saying that, you know, they had increased the gate in the churches and they really ought to be on 10% of it.
Again, the innocence of the Celtic fans. I mean, so many of them were there in their Sunday best, you know, suits and collars and ties. We travelled around the town. The main activities took place in the centre, which was like a miniature George Square. Nobody was ever out of control. In fact, they were great ambassadors for the club that particular day.
That night, we're in a pub, and on national television comes the famous Helenio Herrera. And he was appealing to all the people in Portugal through national television would you please support Inter Milan because we're all Latins. You know, we're all Latins together here. And no non-Latin team had ever won the European Cup. So I says to me, Carlos, well, what did you think of this? What did your family think of that? He says, if you turn this upside down, you have the answer from the whole families, yeah? We are the Celtic peoples, yeah? And to a man, mind you, at the game, the Portuguese were supporting Celtic, and this was, as far as I was concerned, was tremendous.
The locals were quite astonished at the warmth of the Celtic fans. You know, I'd heard that they were wondering who these people were coming from, you know, the sort of cold north, and then they discovered that thousands of them were arriving in the city, and they were singing, and they were happy, and they were jolly. It was just a magical atmosphere.
I think it sprung from Jock Stein, that every player, every fan had confidence in that man who was the master tactician of all time. And we knew that he would find a way to beat the Catenaccio. He would open that bolt. He would slap the lock. He would get us through.
Well, since I've been at Celtic, the stories about Jock Stein's management are amazing. His intuition, his knowledge, and I think the match between Herrera and Stein on a management level or a coaching level was probably one of the most famous of all time. And thankfully, Jock's philosophy in football won the day. I think it was obvious to everybody going into this game, the opinion in world football and European football especially, where Celtic were very much the underdogs and Inter Milan were hot favourites. It's really weird that now I'm managing this great club, and yet I played for the team they beat in '67, Inter Milan. I had 2 years there, and I met quite a few of the people that played in that Inter side. Mazzola, he was one of the directors at Inter Milan at the time, so I came to know some of the players that were playing that day. Of course, being here now, I've met many of the Lisbon lads. The lad who marked Jimmy Johnson, Burnic, he was known very much as a hard man. And you see him marking Jimmy Johnson man for man. Obviously, that was instruction from Elenio Herrera to stop Jimmy from playing. Inter started the match quite well. They had a good chance with Mazzola early on, and Ronnie Simpson had to make a very important save. The thing that impressed me was the interchanging that went on up front in the Celtics team. You know, Jimmy Johnson was getting headers and goal. Willie Wallace would come deep. Steve Chalmers would come deep. Bobby Lennox would switch wings. It must have been very, very difficult for the defence to cope with that. I actually watched the match in Dublin. When the penalty was given, there was outrage. It was never a penalty, but looking back on it, I think it was very much a penalty. Mazzola was their star player, and he took the penalty away quite comfortably. Perhaps it was because they found themselves in the final unexpectedly by most people, that they went about their task with such flair and very little pressure, it seemed, on them. And I think they got the neutral fans on their side when they played with such skill and such commitment to going forward. Such a strong central midfield in Murdoch and all, and I don't need to tell anybody that they complemented one another. You had Bobby that was up and down, dynamo, great passer of the ball, left and right foot, great shot. And you had Bertie, who could put his foot on the ball when the game needed to be slowed down, the pace of it needed to be slowed down. One of the things that amazed me watching it again was how forward the full-backs got. They were popping up on the edge of the box all the time, and Gemmell especially had one hell of a shot, and Sarti made a tremendous save from a volley in the first half. I think Ronnie Simpson showed in the first half how vigilant he was in the game, in as much as that Celtic pushing up looking for the equaliser were always open to be caught on the break with one long pass, but Ronnie was out on the edge of his box He gave everybody heart failure when he backheeled the ball to one of the Celtic players. An unbelievable bit of skill, and probably epitomised the spirit in the Celtic side that day of how they were going to go about and play their football.
It was a long, long first half. You realised when you saw them playing and the way they were playing that they would get through at some stage. And there was a confidence, certainly about the team, but also with the fans. Nobody grumbled. Nobody said, you know, that was a bad move. The fans certainly got behind Celtic. And the confidence that oozed from the Celtic fans, we all knew that there was only going to be one result.
And I thought to myself, no, if there's any justice in the world, you know, a team so ultra-defensive just can't win. I mean, they didn't even have an attack. They got a penalty for nothing, and that was it. How Celtic were attacking, hitting woodwork, and some of the play was just bordered on fantastic.
I always remember sitting next to a very old Swiss journalist. I don't know his name yet, didn't know it then, I don't know it now. And I remember he looked at me and said, "Do not worry, the Scottish team will win."
I think Jock would have said at half-time that just to carry on doing what you're doing, that you've got Inter Milan, you've got them on the rack. I think he would have encouraged more shots from outside the box because it was getting increasingly more difficult to get behind them.